chronicled in deep dispute with my record label. And
which is Warner Brothers, right?
Yeah.
Which owns this
Prince. The name alone conjures images of musical genius, otherworldly talent, and an artist who operated on a completely different plane of existence. His approval was the ultimate prize in music, a prize he rarely, if ever, handed out. He was a visionary who demanded perfection from himself and from the world of music around him. But let's get one thing straight right away. Prince never sat down and published a ranked list of his least favorite bands. That just wasn't his style. So when we talk about the artists he hated, we're piecing together a puzzle from incredible anecdotes, his own private notes, and very pointed public statements. It wasn't about simple dislike. For Prince, music was a sacred craft. A perceived lack of authenticity or originality wasn't just a difference of opinion. It was an offense against the art form itself. So today we're looking at the stories behind the artists who, in Prince's legendary and demanding world, just didn't make the cut. From rock royalty to pop superstars, these are the musicians who fell short of his standards, and the fascinating reasons why. Kicking off our list is a band you'd think Prince might have had a soft spot for, the Flaming Lips. Both were known for pushing boundaries and for spectacular, unforgettable live shows. But that's precisely where the similarities end. And it ends with one of the most brutally cold stories in rock and roll. The scene was the 2006 Brit Awards. The Flaming Lips were in attendance, and so was Prince. For Wayne Coyne, the band's enthusiastic frontman, being in the same room as his hero was an opportunity he couldn't miss. He and his bandmates viewed Prince as a massive inspiration, so they decided to make a gesture. They gathered up a bunch of their own CDs, a humble offering to the master, hoping a little piece of their psychedelic world might find its way to Paisley Park. Full of optimism, they approached Prince's security detail and handed the CDs to a massive bodyguard, explaining they were a gift for Prince. For a moment, they were thrilled. As Coyne later recalled, they imagined Prince kicking back, maybe putting on Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots, and finding something to appreciate. That dream, however, was about to get crushed. Hours later, after the show, the same bodyguard found them in the after-party crowd. He walked right up to Coyne and the band, holding the very same stack of CDs. His message was short, direct, and absolutely devastating. As Coyne tells it, the guard simply said, "Prince doesn't want these." No explanation. No polite, "No, thank you." Just a blunt, ice-cold rejection. Prince didn't need to say he disliked their music. His refusal to even accept it was a powerful statement. He was notorious for his mystique and his impenetrable inner circle, and this was a perfect example. He didn't engage with anything or anyone he didn't personally invite into his world. What's fascinating is Wayne Coyne's reaction. He wasn't bitter. Instead, he found a strange kind of honor in the snub. He actually said, "We loved him so much for being too cool for us." For Coyne, the rejection just reinforced the myth of Prince. It was proof that he was exactly as uncompromising and otherworldly as they'd always imagined. This incident reveals a core truth about Prince. Sometimes, his disapproval wasn't about a detailed musical analysis. It was about a fundamental energetic incompatibility. The unsolicited gift from the outside world was enough to trigger his defenses, giving us a profound glimpse into the mind of an artist who lived entirely within the world he created for himself. Number 5. We have two of the biggest pop titans of the 21st century, Katy Perry and Ed Sheeran. Unlike the silent rejection of the Flaming Lips, Prince's thoughts on these two were written down in his own hand, discovered only after he passed away in his legendary memoir, The Beautiful Ones. The book was left unfinished, and co-writer Dan Piepenbring was tasked with assembling Prince's vision from a treasure trove of personal materials found in Paisley Park. Among the notes, lyrics, and photos, he found Prince's unvarnished opinion on the state of modern pop. Prince wasn't just taking a shot at these two artists personally. He was taking a shot at the entire system they represented. In a handwritten note, he wrote, "We need to tell them that they keep trying to ram Katy Perry and Ed Sheeran down our throats, and we don't like it no matter how many times they play it. That single sentence is pure Prince. The key phrase is ram down our throats. It's aggressive, and it's aimed directly at the corporate machine. For Prince, an artist who fought Warner Brothers for years, famously writing "slave" on his cheek to protest his contract, the modern pop industry was his old enemy in a new form. He built Paisley Park as a fortress to escape the very system that creates and promotes artists like Perry and Sheeran. In the world of mainstream pop, songs are often crafted by huge teams of professional writers and producers. It's music engineered, for mass appeal, designed for constant radio play. This was the exact opposite of Prince's philosophy. He saw the non-stop airplay not as a sign of genuine popularity, but as a top-down corporate mandate. The "they" in his note, the faceless executives and radio conglomerates, were, in his view, dictating public taste instead of letting true artistry rise to the top. This wasn't just some older artist hating on the younger generation. Prince championed younger artists he felt were authentic, like Janelle Monáe and Lizzo. His problem wasn't with pop music. He wrote some of the greatest pop songs of all time. His problem was with what he saw as manufactured, soulless pop. For an artist who gave the world the genre-bending complexity of Purple Rain and the raw funk of Kiss, the algorithm-friendly hits of the 2010s weren't just a matter of taste, they were a sign of cultural decay. And in true Prince fashion, he wasn't afraid to name the names he saw at the center of the storm. At number 4 is a group that absolutely dominated the global charts with their high-energy party anthems. The Black Eyed Peas. But the very things that made them a worldwide phenomenon, the slick production and unapologetically commercial sound, were exactly what earned them Prince's scorn. Now, this next story is pure music industry lore. It's never been 100% confirmed, but it has been repeated for years because it sounds exactly like something Prince would say. The story goes that Prince was at an industry event where will.i.am was DJing, spinning the kind of heavily produced, perfectly synced electro-pop the Peas were famous for. Prince reportedly grew agitated and didn't stay long. As he was leaving, he allegedly turned to someone in his entourage and delivered one of the most devastating takedowns in music history, saying what he heard was not music, but a marketing meeting. Whether he said it or not, that line perfectly captures his artistic philosophy. To call their work a marketing meeting was to accuse it of being completely devoid of human feeling and spontaneous creativity. Prince was a master of the analog world. He celebrated the slight imperfections, the human groove that can't be replicated by a machine. He believed in the space between the notes. The Black Eyed Peas, on the other hand, were pioneers of a digitally perfected pop sound. will.i.am was a master of auto-tune, and their beats were programmed with digital precision. Songs like "I Got a Feeling" were sonic brands built for maximum impact in stadiums and commercials. An associate once claimed, Prince said that when you auto-tune the soul out of music, you're left with nothing but plastic. This put him in direct opposition to everything the Black Eyed Peas stood for. The tension reportedly came to a head around the time of the Super Bowl halftime shows. Prince's 2007 performance in A Downpour is considered by many to be the greatest of all time. When the Black Eyed Peas were set to perform in 2011, production sources claimed there was a plan for a promotional shoot with past performers. Prince, allegedly, flatly refused to participate. He would not share a stage or even a promotional photo with a group he considered the antithesis of his art. For Prince, it was a philosophical war between the organic and the synthetic, and in his eyes, the Black Eyed Peas were leading an army for the other side. Coming in at number 3 is a band that committed one of the ultimate sins in Prince's world. They messed with one of his masterpieces. That band is Maroon 5, and the song is the iconic 1986 funk anthem, Kiss. Prince was fiercely protective of his catalog. He rarely approved samples and was openly critical of most cover versions. So when one of the biggest pop rock bands on the planet recorded a studio version of Kiss for their 2012 album Overexposed, they were treading on sacred ground. To understand Prince's reaction, you have to appreciate the original. His Kiss is a masterwork of minimalism. It's sparse, sharp, and raw. The power of the song lies in its negative space. The gaps between the notes are where all the seduction and attitude live. Maroon 5's version is the exact opposite. They filled in all those sacred spaces with slick guitar parts, a polished rhythm section, and Adam Levine's signature pop vocals. They turned a minimalist funk workout into a high-gloss, radio-friendly rock production. According to a former Paisley Park engineer, when Prince first heard the cover, he didn't yell. Instead, he delivered a critique that was both simple and profound. He reportedly said, "They took all the spaces out of the music," adding that for him, the spaces were as important as the notes. He saw their version as a fundamental misunderstanding of the song's very soul. But Prince wasn't finished. He took his criticism public in a 2013 Billboard interview. When asked about artists covering classic songs, his target was clear. Why do we need to hear another cover of a song someone else did? Art is about building a new foundation, not just laying something on top of what's already there. He was framing their cover not as a tribute, but as an act of creative laziness. The situation reportedly got even worse when Adam Levine claimed in an interview that he had received Prince's blessing for the cover. According to Prince's then-manager, Albert Magnoli, Prince was furious when he heard this and insisted, "I never approved anything." For Prince, this was about his name and his integrity. This whole episode solidified his public stance. He would often introduce Kiss at his own shows with a pointed remark. Before one performance, he told the audience, "I'm going to show you how this is supposed to be done." His dislike for their cover was about a clash of philosophies. Prince was an innovator. He saw Maroon 5's cover as the ultimate evidence of a derivative approach. They hadn't built a new foundation. They had just put new wallpaper on his. At number 2, we have a story that's less about artistic differences and more about a raw public humiliation that left a deep and lasting mark on a young Prince. The artists at the center of it? Rock and roll royalty, the Rolling Stones. The year was 1981. Prince was a rising star but still mostly unknown to mainstream rock fans. He had just released his brilliant and controversial album, Dirty Mind. Mick Jagger saw him perform and was so impressed that he invited Prince to open for the Stones for 2 shows at the LA Coliseum. It was a massive opportunity. On October 9, 1981, Prince took the stage. Dressed in his signature trench coat, black bikini briefs, and high-heeled boots. He was a vision of futuristic funk. The crowd of nearly 100,000 die-hard Stones fans was not ready. They had been waiting for hours in the sun for blues-based rock and roll, and instead, they got the sexually charged funk of songs like Jack You Off. Their confusion quickly turned to hostility. The boos grew louder, and then things got ugly. The audience started throwing whatever they could find onto the stage. Cups, cans, bottles, and even, famously, a whole chicken. Racist and homophobic. Slurs were hurled from the crowd. After just 4 songs, the 23-year-old Prince, overwhelmed and shaken, walked off stage. He was so devastated that he flew straight home to Minneapolis, vowing not to return for the second show. This is where it gets interesting. Mick Jagger himself called Prince personally to convince him to come back. Prince reluctantly agreed, determined not to be defeated. But the second show was more of the same. He and his band bravely finished their set this time before making their exit. The public humiliation was bad enough, but it was the reaction from other members of the Stones that likely cemented Prince's feelings. In his memoir, Life, Keith Richards recalled the incident with shocking cruelty. He wrote that Prince has to find out what it means to be a prince, adding, "He's a prince who thinks he's a king already." Richards went on to call him an overrated midget, completely blaming Prince for the crowd's violent, prejudiced reaction. To be treated as a disposable opening act and then insulted by one of his heroes was a profound wound. Prince rarely spoke of the incident publicly, but it was a formative experience. It reinforced his desire to control every aspect of his career and to build an audience on his own terms. He would never again be at the mercy of someone else's crowd. That disaster at the Coliseum fueled his ambition to become so successful that he would always be the headliner. And in the end, that's exactly what he did. And at the #1 spot, it's not just a rival, but an equal, a titan. The only other artist in the 1980s who occupied the same rarefied air of global superstardom, Michael Jackson. The rivalry between Prince and Michael Jackson is the stuff of legend, a complex, decades-long Cold War between the two biggest black, male pop stars the world had ever seen. They were two sides of the same brilliant coin. Both child prodigies from the Midwest, both redefined music and dance, and both shattered racial barriers on MTV. But their approaches couldn't have been more different. Michael was the king of pop, a dazzling entertainer aiming for universal love. Prince was the purple one, a mysterious funk rock enigma who courted controversy. Jackson wanted to be loved by everyone. Prince seemed content to be understood by a select few. This difference fueled their rivalry. When Jackson's Thriller became a global monster in 1982, it completely eclipsed Prince's own masterpiece, 1999. According to Prince's inner circle, this lit a competitive fire in him that would never go out. The rivalry played out in a series of iconic encounters. At a James Brown concert in 1983, Jackson was invited on stage and delivered a stunning performance. Then he dared James Brown to call up Prince. Caught off guard, Prince accepted, played a chaotic guitar solo, and ended up accidentally pulling down a prop lamppost while stumbling into the crowd. It was a rare moment of public awkwardness, and Prince was reportedly furious, convinced Michael had set him up. Then there was the saga of the song Bad. Quincy Jones wanted it to be a duet. Between the two, Prince was invited to Michael's studio to hear it. As Prince later told it, he heard the opening line, "Your butt is mine," and immediately thought, "Who's gonna sing that to whom? 'Cause you sure ain't singing it to me." He politely declined. But in a classic Prince move, he then went to his own studio, recorded his own funkier version of Bad, and sent it back to Michael. A superstar's way of saying, "Here's how it should have been done." The competition was relentless and often petty. Yet, beneath it all, there was a layer of deep, unspoken respect. They were the only two people on Earth who knew what it was like to be at that level. After Jackson's death in 2009, Prince's reaction was reportedly quiet and poignant. While the quote is widely circulated and hard to source directly, he supposedly told an interviewer, "It's like the sky was blue and now it's not." It was a rare admission of the bond they shared, a bond defined by the clash of two singular, irreplaceable artists who pushed each other and all of music forward. So what do you think? Was Prince a genius protecting true artistry, or was he just too harsh on his fellow musicians? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed these stories from behind the music, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more. In the end, Prince's legendary critiques weren't just about negativity. They were a reflection of his impossibly high standards and his passionate, lifelong fight for authenticity. He challenged everyone, from the biggest superstars to his own fans, to demand more from music and to celebrate the artists who dare to be different. Every action was a statement, a reinforcement of his singular vision. He wasn't just making music. He was setting a standard that continues to inspire and challenge musicians to this very day. Thanks for watching.